Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, a major defeat for a prominent political progressive in one of the most liberal cities in the country. Voters in San Francisco sending a message recalling the city's progressive district attorney after concerns on crime. But he blames someone else.
I want to be very clear about what happened tonight. The right-wing billionaires outspent us 3-1.
We'll look at the city's crime problem that led to this recall election. With the pain at the pump getting worse, inflation a hot topic in Washington, with Republicans blaming the Democrats' big spending and the president's energy policies for making the problem worse.
The president's executive orders have shut down the Extel pipeline. They have stopped the issuance of more leases. They've stopped the progress on the permitting of those leases, stopped the offshore oil production. The fact is, we were energy independent.
The debate comes as gas prices shoot up once again. The history of the city of Jerusalem and its role in biblical prophecy.
There's no other city on earth that's had its history foretold, from its destruction to its desolation to a revival as a world player.
Why this author says the prophecies about Jerusalem have never been fulfilled in such a dramatic and significant way as they are today. And our Studio 5 conversation with recording artist Marika Chisholm, who went through a series of personal tragedies and turned to the Lord for help.
There were Sundays that I got up and said, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. And I'm really moving in the joy of the Lord is my strength. That's the only thing I have today. So we're just gonna press and we're gonna worship God together. And we just believe God.
Now she has a new live album as she leads believers in worship. All those stories and more ahead today on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin in San Francisco, where voters recalled Progressive District Attorney Chesa Boudin as critics blasted him over the city's increase in violent crime, murder, burglaries, and open drug dealing. But Boudin blamed other reasons for his defeat.
People are angry. They're frustrated. And I want to be very clear about what happened tonight. The right-wing billionaires outspent us 3-1. They exploited an environment in which people are appropriately upset.
But San Francisco is overwhelmingly Democratic, and voters in the famously liberal city clearly agreed with Boudin's critics, including those who said Boudin often sided with criminals instead of victims. Voters in Los Angeles are also trying to recall their progressive district attorney, George Gascon, as well. Turning now to another top political issue, inflation. Another day, another new record for gas prices, and unsurprisingly, Democrats and Republicans disagree on what led to the rising prices over this last year. Our Charlene Aaron is on this story.
Americans are experiencing record-high gas prices and a 40-year high in inflation. The Biden administration points to the war in Ukraine and the after effects of the pandemic. But others say the administration's policies are to blame. More pain at the pump as gas prices jump more than 60 cents in a month, averaging $4.95 a gallon.
We now have 14 different states where the average has already surpassed that $5 a gallon mark, and seeing some tremendous increases.
Across the country, prices rising in just the last week. In Michigan, drivers are paying 51 cents more to fill up. In Indiana, gas is up 48 cents, 46 cents in Ohio. On Capitol Hill Tuesday, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen blamed Russia's war in Ukraine and the global oil market for higher prices across the board.
Putin's war in Ukraine is having impacts on energy and food prices globally. We're not the only country that's experiencing inflation.
Republicans point the finger at the president's policies, targeting domestic oil and gas production.
The president's executive orders have shut down the Extel pipeline. They have stopped the issuance of more leases. They've stopped the progress on the permitting of those leases, stopped the offshore oil production. The fact is, we were energy independent.
Yellen backing the president's agenda to transition from gas and oil to green energy sources.
Over the medium term, the critical thing is that we become more dependent on the wind and the sun that are not subject to geopolitical influences.
This as the nation is seeing an 8.3% inflation rate, a 40-year high. South Dakota Republican Senator John Thune blames government spending, citing the president's $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan.
There's no question that the $2 trillion bill last year overheated the economy, and it's why we have the mess that we have today.
Yellen said it was necessary to pull the economy out of a post-pandemic slump.
The overwhelming risk was that Americans would be scarred by a deep and long recession.
The economic crisis is likely to hurt Democrats in November's midterm elections. According to a new poll, more than 70% of Americans disapprove of the president's handling of inflation. 51% said inflation and the economy will play a major role in how they vote in the midterms. Meanwhile, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen admitted the administration missed early signs of the dangers of inflation and should not have described it as transitory. She now says she expects high prices to remain for an extended period of time. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Also in Washington Tuesday, the Senate Judiciary Committee took up concerns over domestic terrorism. 3 weeks after a mass shooting at a Buffalo supermarket that left 10 black people dead. The suspect now charged with domestic terrorism motivated by hate and accused of targeting his victims because of their race. While lawmakers agree something needs to be done, as national security correspondent Caitlin Burke reports, Tuesday's hearing started with finger-pointing.
We cannot deny that hate has a big platform. There are media figures like Tucker Carlson dragging racist conspiracy theories into mainstream America.
Report by the Center of Strategic and International Studies found that 40% of all domestic terrorist attacks in 2021 were from the left.
After that showing, Professor Robert Pape testified it's these political logjams that make it nearly impossible for Washington to address threats to our democracy.
Build from the center and to build working groups of the 10 of the senators who can really work together the most, and to build out from there, and then to build a national conversation from that group, regardless of what happens in the outcome of the 2022 election or so forth. The difficulty is that the electoral pressures are so intense that it's getting in the way of any serious governings.
The son of a Buffalo victim called on lawmakers to do something, or basically get out of the way for someone else to get the job done.
My mother's life mattered. My mother's life mattered. And your actions here today will tell us how much it matters to you.
Former FBI Special Agent Michael German urged that monitoring and acting on social media threats could help prevent future attacks.
The white supremacist attackers in Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and El Paso all gained access to materials online and expressed their hateful and violent intentions on social media.
The problem, he pointed out, is the difficulty of zeroing in on comments that truly represent a threat of violence. Homeland Security issued a warning Tuesday that extremist groups are already going online to encourage copycat attacks of what happened at the Uvalde school.
Our domestic extremists and our domestic terrorists had learned from the TTPs, the tactics, techniques, and procedures of jihadi terrorists, and they were also using online forums effectively to do likewise.
Because of the overwhelming amount of online threats, state intelligence centers were set up to focus solely on sifting through posts and passing on credible threats to federal authorities. Donnell Harvin ran the center in Washington, D.C.
You can say just about any hateful, violent thing you want online. Our Constitution protects that, but you can't say that directed towards a person or a place.
Harvin says the country is ripe with division that domestic extremist groups can exploit, and they make those fights their own as a recruitment tactic.
Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Acts of violence and vandalism have also been increasing against pro-life groups. Tuesday morning, for example, a faith-based pregnancy center in Buffalo was firebombed by radical abortion advocates. You can read about that attack at cbnnews.com. In the wake of the mass shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde, actor Matthew McConaughey took to the podium at the White House Tuesday after visiting Capitol Hill. McConaughey, who is a native of Uvalde, addressing reporters in an impassioned speech calling for gun responsibility and speaking of the children whose funerals he personally attended, including 9-year-old Ellie Garcia, who was memorizing a Bible verse before her death.
Deuteronomy 6:5. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. That's who Ellie was becoming. But she never got to read it.
McConaughey's remarks came as a bipartisan group of senators works towards an agreement on gun legislation. Proposals including changing criminal background checks to include juvenile records, giving states incentives to enact red flag laws to remove guns from the hands of people who may be dangerous, and funding for school security and mental health. Coming up, Jerusalem, the holiest city on earth. An author and photographer tells its history in a book. And we will see what Jerusalem Rising means in terms of biblical prophecy. We've got that story for you when we come back.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians in Iran are routinely arrested.
Nepali Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Saturday night at 6 on the CBN News Channel. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
An author and photographer shares the history of the holiest city on earth and describes its current revival on the way to becoming the center of the world's attention. The book contains some of the oldest photographs of Jerusalem ever taken. It also explains what Jerusalem Rising means in terms of biblical prophecy. Here's Chris Mitchell with the story.
Author Doug Hershey uses past and current photographs to show the extraordinary transformation of Jerusalem over the past 175 years. The book continues Hershey's unique look at prophecy and the Holy Land.
Much like Israel Rising documented the revival of the land, Jerusalem Rising is documenting the fulfillment of, or at least the beginning processes of these biblical prophecies about Jerusalem being restored and what it's leading to.
Hershey and adventure photographer Eden Ram comb the city for just the right angles to capture its past and present.
Eden climbs up the top, there he goes. Looking at, you can kind of look through the fence here. It'll look better when you see the actual photos, but some of all of that stuff right in there is what he's getting a shot of from back in the early 1900s.
To be able to go to some of these locations and find the exact locations where a photographer set up 175 years ago to capture what Jerusalem looks like, and then go back today to the exact same location. Some of the oldest photos of Jerusalem ever taken were from 1844, and we have several of those in Jerusalem Rising, and all of those I don't think have ever been recreated ever.
One of those before and after photos takes place here, just outside the Jaffa Gate of Jerusalem's old city walls. It looks back from this spot towards what's known as the Tower of David. Hershey says most any city on earth may look different over the course of 100 years, but Jerusalem is unique.
There's no other city on earth that's had its history foretold, from its destruction to its desolation to a revival as a world player. So to be able to see all of that beginning to unfold in our day is really amazing. And so that's a lot of what's been documented in Jerusalem Rising.
Hershey says some of those prophecies can be seen on the streets here.
In Zechariah 8, God says that he's going to return to the city and he's going to dwell with his people, which is a profound statement for one of the prophets to say, that God's saying, I'm going to return to Jerusalem and dwell with my people. He says that the old men and old women will dwell safely in the streets, leaning on their canes, and the children will be playing in the streets, and the nations will begin to flood to Jerusalem.
And before COVID, Israel set records for tourism.
Never before in history have the nations flooded to Jerusalem the way that they are in our day. And now, clearly, in Zechariah 8, it's in the context of coming to worship the King in Jerusalem, but it's undeniable that these are very beginning stages, historically, that we're seeing unfold in the city that have just never happened before.
Hershey says if we want to understand Jerusalem, we must look to the Scriptures.
Ultimately, if we continue reading the Scriptures, if we believe what the prophets said, Jerusalem is going to be a seat of ruling power for a Jewish king. Ezekiel 5:5 says that God has placed Jerusalem in the center of the earth. So locationally, it's already in the center of the earth. And one day soon, and even beginning now, it's already becoming the center of the world's attention.
A city that for thousands of years has stood at the crossroads of history and prophecy.
Jerusalem has been conquered and reconquered multiple times. It's changed hands over 40 times. It's been completely leveled at least twice. There's been literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years where the city has just laid desolate, according to eyewitness accounts. Now we're at a time where things are starting to revive. So prophetic words from Zechariah 8 or Isaiah or any of these prophets about Israel, about Jerusalem, where once we thought were allegorical or spiritual or just abstract concepts, we're finding that God is doing exactly what he said. Never before have these prophecies been fulfilled in such a dramatic and significant way, and it's happening in our day in a really powerful and unique way.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the Jaffa Gate, Jerusalem's old city.
Still ahead, our Studio 5 conversation with recording artist Marika Chisholm as she opens up about the pain and tragedy she went through in her life recently and how she turned to the Lord and now is leading others into the presence of God. We'll hear her story right after this.
Having sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire. Monday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Thursday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. We want to now set the stage for Marika Chisholm. She's a recording artist who's just released her third album. It's a live recording called Seeker, and she tells us some deep personal pain produced a powerful praise project. My introduction to Marika, and we sing it all the time, and I'm excited. I'm on the worship team, so whenever this song is on the list, I'm excited.
Yeah, I already knew what it was. Higher is high energy. It's gonna make you move. It's just a good song.
His name, I know his name. His name is wonderful. I know his name. Yeah.
You've been singing for how long?
Oh gosh, I've been singing since I was 2. Now I don't know if it was good or not, but
I know his name. I know his name.
When did you realize, okay, this is something I could do or that I'm going to do for a living? Because we're now on album number 3.
Yes.
So when did you realize this is?
Oh gosh. So my story's a little different. I didn't come into worship saying, I'm called to worship. I came into leading worship because that was the it thing at the time, and my church needed a youth praise team. And they were like, well, you can sing. Get up here. I did that for a while, and then I did background, and I went on tour singing background with some artists. And then I want to say I guess I'm a late bloomer, because I was 25 when I really said, okay, this is what I'm called to do, not just, something I like doing.
And we're now sitting looking at your third project, and this is called Seeker.
Seeker.
It's time for me to praise now. My breakthrough is near.
Tell me about the birth of this project and the process for you.
So, 2020, this pandemic has affected everybody. And I went through a time where people that were very close to me started passing away. And it wasn't due to COVID. It was just my father in ministry had cancer. And it only took 89 days from diagnosis to him passing. My best friend of over 20 years was murdered. My cousin, who was only 50 years old, had a brain aneurysm and died. So it was a lot of grief and sadness and depression. And I had to seek God. Like, what's next? What do you have for me? Because I know I'm not just supposed to be sad. So help me, Lord, as your scripture says, put on the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, because this heaviness is heavy. So I started seeking God in unconventional ways for me. So I had to seek God in a different way. And I pray that when people hear the album, they can hear that because it's authentic, and also they can then seek God for themselves. I think people connect when you're authentic. And you don't have to lie and just say, you know what, y'all, this is a hard day for me, but we're going to press in his presence. And there were Sundays that I got up and said, I'm not going to lie to y'all. And I'm really moving in the joy of the Lord is my strength. That's the only thing I have today. So we're just going to press and we're going to worship God together. And we just believe God. I think authenticity is what people want. Now, we don't have to fake and we don't have to be phony and say all is well. Well, we speak in life that all is well, sure, but right now I'm sad. And the people that I'm ministering to, you may be sad too, but let me help you with something. The joy of the Lord really can be your strength.
I am one praise away from my breakthrough.
Again, this is Marika's third album. It's a live recording. It's called Seeker. It is available right now wherever you purchase your music. We've got another round of great guests on Studio 5 this evening. Hootie and the Blowfish's longtime drummer becomes a first-time author. He puts down the sticks and picks up a pen to share his personal band story. We have our Studio 5 first look at the 6th film in the Jurassic Park franchise. And we have new music from Major. You can catch Studio 5 on the CBN News Channel. It begins tonight at 8:30 Eastern. You can also find it on the CBN News app. We'll be right back with an encouraging word for your day. Stay with us.
I am Regent's first ROTC graduate student.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Welcome back. Time for your Wednesday word. Today's word is joy. Always remember and never forget. The joy of the Lord is our strength, and his strength is made perfect in our weakness. In your weak moments, then, now, or later, God is not absent. He's actually closer. So quiet yourself. You'll hear him. Reach up and you will touch him. With that word, I encourage you to make today a wonderful Wednesday. Well, that is a wrap for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time, as well as online at cbnnews.com. We would love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com, that address right there at the bottom of your screen. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Make it a wonderful Wednesday. We'll see you right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye. God bless.